And on the stand, the woman from Planned Parenthood was talking about this, and one of the legislators said, but what about keeping abortion safe, right? Isn't that what you said you want? And she said, no, it's now about access. So it's really about access at all costs. So even if the woman is killed, even if she's hurt, even if she bleeds to death on the table, at least she had access to abortion.
All right, very glad to have our next guest here. This is a long form today. And we do that every now and then with just some guests who you know what? I don't need to justify myself to you. I want to talk with this lady for a longer amount of time. She hasn't been on the show. I don't think for 3 years. She had been on the show back when it was in my den before it was daily. You can follow her on the Twitter at Abby Johnson. She's a former Planned Parenthood worker, author. She has a website, abbyjohnson.org, abortionworker.com. We'll be talking about that quite a bit today, and a movie coming out, unplannedfilm.com. Wow. Abby Johnson, thank you for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Well, I'm glad to have you back. You look bright-eyed and bushy-tailed. I hope you're in good health, good spirits.
You know, I'm pregnant, so I have the pregnant glow, I think.
Oh, yeah. Isn't it ironic?
Plus, I have like a lamp back here that sort of gives me like the Trump glow. So yes. I look tanner than I really am.
So long as it's not a UV lamp because of the pregnancy, we're fine. Either way, it's all a good thing. For people who don't know, and we've had you on the show before, but I think a lot of people who will be stumbling across this program here on YouTube might not necessarily know your background. You worked at Planned Parenthood, left, and wrote about it. I don't want to speak for you. Give them kind of a recap.
Yeah, so I worked at Planned Parenthood for 8 years. I was a clinic director at one of the affiliate facilities out of Houston. Got involved as a college kid, didn't know much about Planned Parenthood, really got involved with them, loved what I was doing, believed we were doing the right things. In 2009, we were building, it's now in operation, the largest abortion facility in the Western Hemisphere. We were building an abortion facility that would abort babies through 24 weeks pregnancy for any reason. That was problematic for me because I knew we were now like in the point of viability for babies. A few months later, I had a meeting with my supervisor where I was instructed to double our abortion quota, the number of abortions that we had to sell to women coming in. And then a few months later, I was asked to come in and assist during an ultrasound-guided abortion procedure. Ultrasounds are not typically used during the actual abortion procedure. They're used before so that you can date the pregnancy so that you know how much to charge the woman for an abortion. Mm-hmm. But then the ultrasounds are rolled away. And the abortion itself is actually done in a blind sort of manner. Right. So
I would imagine that's very important, obviously. It is important to those on the left. They've talked about not wanting women to see ultrasounds or not wanting to have to look at ultrasounds before performing an abortion, which to me would seem like a reasonable policy. Before we continue with that, I think I do want to touch on that because it's extremely relevant given what just happened in New York. The Reproductive Health Act just passed. For people who don't know, I think the bill actually broadens this, if I'm not mistaken, a health exception for abortions up to, as you just mentioned, 24 weeks. That's up to 9 months of pregnancy for age, economic, social. There's a list on the website. Do I have that about right?
So you can have an abortion for any reason up until 24 weeks, which is 6 months of pregnancy. And then after 24 weeks, so from 25 to 40 weeks, so, you know, the date of birth, right. You can have an abortion for basically anything because they quantify it as health of the mother, which can literally be anything. So if I'm feeling stressed, that is impeding my health. Right? If I'm feeling anxious, that's a reason. If my boyfriend ran out on me, certainly that's causing me emotional distress. So that's a reason. So you can now kill a baby through the date of birth in the state of New York.
Right. So abortions up to 24 weeks with broad health exceptions up to birth. It's like a medical marijuana card, except killing babies. They're like, well, I got back pain. Give me pot. Yeah. It's like, I got back pain. Kill the baby. Pretty much.
Yeah. Exactly. And, you know, there are already some states that have this exception. One of the things that makes New York a little bit different. So Colorado allows, no surprise, but Colorado allows abortion up until the date of birth as well. One of the differences, though, with the New York law is that now it's expanded so that it doesn't have to be physicians actually performing the abortion, which is similar to what we saw in California. So in California, nurses can now perform abortions on women. It's now the same in New York. So we don't even have physicians performing these abortions on women who go in anymore.
That seems to be moving away from safe, legal, and rare, right? They said if you don't have this legal and available to everyone, we'll be doing back alley abortions with coat hangers. And now they're saying, well, it's legal, but nurse practitioner is good enough.
So we saw that in California specifically. So a few years ago when that bill passed, through the legislature, Planned Parenthood had actually done a pilot study with nurses performing abortions. And what they had found, no surprise, and this is not to diss on nurses because I love, love, love nurses, but they are not as skilled in performing surgical procedures, right? They're not trained to perform surgeries when they're going through school. So what Planned Parenthood found in their pilot study was that there was an increased risk of hysterectomy on women who had abortions performed by nurses, increased risk of infection because of fetal products still left in the womb. There were all of these complications, increased risk of uterine perforation. And on the stand, the woman from Planned Parenthood was talking about this, and one of the legislators said, but what about keeping abortions safe, right? Isn't that what you said you want? And she said, no, it's now about access. So it's really about access at all costs. So even if the woman is killed, even if she's hurt, even if she bleeds to death on the table, at least she had access to abortion.
Right. And I understand that you're not dissing on nurses, but I will for a couple of minutes here. I just had a nurse hook up an IV and miss the vein the first time, and then the second time missed it to the point where I had to be holding it, and the doctor came in, redid it. I had to be holding this thing at the right angle for about an hour, and my arms, it was swollen like the head of the guy from the Goonies for about half a day when I had to sit there in Nevada. So yeah, I don't, when I'm at a restaurant and they say, hi, this is my shadow or apprentice, a server, they're like, do you mind if she or he takes your orders today? I say, I do. Send them away. I want the best server humanly possible right now because I don't want you to risk bringing my sidecar out with too much Cointreau. That's how strict I am. When it would come to abortion, it seems as though, to me, if we're talking about safe, legal, and rare, if we're talking about wanting to increase, I hate to use the word quality or safety or health standards of abortion, that this would fly in the face of what so-called feminists have fought for years.
For sure. And we actually, through my ministry, it's really not part of our mission, but we say our mission is mission drift. We started looking at inspection reports from abortion facilities. So inspection reports that come from the state. We took all of them together. We got them through FOIAs in each state. We put them all together on a website. People can go. It's called checkmyclinic.org. And you can see Planned Parenthood clinics, individual clinics. They're not sterilizing instruments that are being used woman to woman. Some of these clinics are washing.
Why not, though? Why not? I mean, I sterilize a needle if I have a hangnail. Why don't they? It seems that would be pretty easy.
Just no time. So
many abortions? They can't sterilize the equipment?
Yeah, well, it takes about 45 minutes for a full autoclave cycle to run.
Okay.
So most clinics have about 20 packs of instruments, and a lot of clinics are performing 50, 60, 70 abortions a day. So you don't have time to continue to run the packs. So some of the clinics are washing the instruments in Dawn dish soap and saying that that's sanitary enough to put inside another woman. There was a clinic that had rat holes where they could see rats coming in and out of the building. And this is where the abortions were actually taking place. Why isn't this secular feminist movement up in arms saying this is bad for women? It doesn't make any sense.
Okay, a couple things. Did you just say Dawn? Because if I'm not mistaken, I've seen commercials saying gentle enough to use on this duck, a victim of the BP oil spill. I want some kind of solvent that would strip the varnish off a Foot Locker when it comes to performing abortions. Second, I have to argue on behalf, I guess, of leftists who wouldn't be here, who say you're taking extreme examples to make a point. This is not common. Would there be some validity to that claim from them?
It's so common. And if they go to the website, you can look. Almost every single abortion facility has these types of egregious violations on their inspection reports. And I mean, we didn't make it up. It's from the state reports. People can see the official state report right there. It's crazy. It's crazy what they're getting away with. Like, if a hospital was doing this, they would be shut down.
Are there lower standards of care for abortion clinics and hospitals? I guess that's the laser question there. Are there lower standards of care and health and how sanitary these conditions can be when compared to a hospital?
Yes, absolutely.
That's deeply concerning. And it would be deeply concerning to someone who is pro-abortion. It kind of like I bring it back to the people who talked about legalizing pot, in California. Now a lot of them still want to buy their pot illegally because turns out taxes are expensive. Like, but yeah, but now there are no contaminants. You know where it's grown and you know the concentration. Like, yeah, but it's like 3 times the price. And so I'm going to go buy something called OG Dream from a guy named Lil Cuz. Let me ask you this.
I know that guy.
I know. His stuff is actually, it may not be FDA approved. Well, they're not FDA approved. It may not be state approved. But he knows what he's doing. I will say that. Hydroponic, that guy knows what he's doing. He has a greenhouse in his walk-in closet. Let me ask you this. Planned Parenthood, okay? Because I want to get into your ministry, your outreach that you do right now. And I also want to get into your experience with having been both to the Women's March and speaking at the March for Life, which was at the center of quite a bit of controversy recently. My wife works at a crisis pregnancy center. And, of course, options counseling, they help women with how to take care of the baby, prenatal vitamins, if they want to give the child up for adoption, if they are going to be a single mother, nannying care. Let me ask you this. Did Planned Parenthood, because we're told they offer a whole lot more than abortion, I think that's something that is often missed by people who haven't gone through the process or people who don't work specifically in the abortion or unplanned, planned pregnancy arena. Were there options counseling offered at Planned Parenthood? Is that a part of their business plan there?
No, not at all. When I was trained to be a counselor at Planned Parenthood and counsel women who were coming in to have abortions, I was told not to introduce other options to them because women who come into Planned Parenthood know that they want an abortion. So we do not want to confuse them by giving them other options. They're here. They came to Planned Parenthood. They know what they want. They want an abortion. When I graduated with my master's degree in therapy, I noticed that on all of our documentation, it said that we provided options counseling, and I knew that wasn't true. So I said, look, we should actually do this. If we're going to say we do it, we should do it. So I write up this protocol to, how to provide professional options counseling to women who come in who are pregnant. I send it off to PPFA, Planned Parenthood Federation of America. I get a letter back from them that says they are rejecting my protocol because they do not find it to be revenue generating. So what does that mean? If a woman decides to choose life and decides to carry the pregnancy to term, well, Planned Parenthood doesn't provide prenatal care. So we can't make money off of a woman choosing to keep her child. If a woman places her child for adoption, we don't get any adoption kickback for that. So to give her options counseling, if she chooses another option outside of abortion, that's not revenue generating for Planned Parenthood.
But such a small percentage of the revenue generated at Planned Parenthood is from abortions, I'm told. Abby, you have the floor.
But we see in their annual report about 50% of their revenue generated comes from abortion procedures. About 50% comes from government money, comes from our tax dollars. Mm-hmm. So they say it's such a tiny little percentage of what they do, yet it makes up half of their revenue.
How does that happen?
And it doesn't. I
remember last time you explained, they add up these different services, which are clearly being performed for the abortion, but they separate them as line items.
Right. So what they do, if I go into Planned Parenthood and I'm going to get my annual exam, right? Mm-hmm. I'm going to get a pap smear. I'm going to get a gonorrhea and chlamydia test, and I'm going to get...
You say that so casually, but I'll go with you. But
Hey, look, gonorrhea and chlamydia, everybody should get tested. Okay. So then I'm going to get 10 packs of birth control pills. Okay. So typically at any other doctor's office, you go in, you have one visit, you have 13 procedure codes. Okay. Mm-hmm. But that's not what they do at Planned Parenthood. They unbundle the service. So it looks like you came in for 13 separate visits. Then they do the opposite for abortion. So all of the things that you have during an abortion procedure, blood pressure, vital signs, RH testing, pregnancy testing, all of those, they do what they should be doing, and they bundle them all together and take all of those services for one visit. So we'll never actually know the real numbers that Planned Parenthood has. They have them, but we'll never know them because they will never give out the number of unduplicated clients that they see every year. If they did, we would see that probably about 50% of the services that they provide are actually they're actually abortion services.
And why won't they give out that list? What's their justification?
They just really need people to believe that they are all about family planning. However, we might be seeing a change because their new president, Dr. Leanna Wen, comes out recently on Twitter and says, hey, stop making it sound like we're all about family planning. Our core mission at Planned Parenthood is to actually increase abortion. So we might be seeing a change with this new president. Maybe one day we will get the real numbers. I went to the Women's March Women's Convention in Detroit 2 years ago. And I just wanted to sit in on the sessions and listen. And it was interesting because we, of course, sat in on the Planned Parenthood.
Did you say Women's March Women's Convention in Detroit?
Yes.
I would rather arrive at the gates of heaven and St. Peter send me straight to hell for eternity than attend that in that godforsaken city. But continue with that story. God love you for doing it so that I don't have to.
So we just wanted to see, of course we sit in on the Planned Parenthood track, which makes them very uncomfortable because they know who I am. And so we're sitting in there, and it was so funny because the audience, they're talking and they're taking questions from the audience, and the audience is they're all people that work at Planned Parenthood. So they're all standing up saying, can we please stop saying that only 3% of our services are abortion? We all know that's a lie, and that's only creating additional abortion stigma. If abortion's not wrong, why do we keep saying it's only 3% as if it's a bad thing if it was 100%?
Right.
And I was like, yes, that's exactly right. So at one point in time, they had these questions and answers. So I decided I need to go up and ask a question.
I'm surprised they don't just have your picture, your portrait on a wall there. So the fact that you got up to the microphone is impressive. So I want to hear what's next. I'm at the edge of my seat.
Yeah, so they were trying to cut me off. They were trying to end the session before I could say something. But I'm like, excuse me. So I start talking, and one of the girls that worked there at an abortion clinic had said, I cry with my patients. I know how difficult this is for them. She admitted to having 6 abortions and all this. And so I get up to the mic and I'm like, listen, I said, I'm a woman who has had 2 abortions. And I said, and even though I'm regretful of those decisions now, I was not regretful at the time. And I said, so aren't you just escalating abortion stigma by saying you're crying with your patients? Why are you crying? Mm-hmm. It's not a baby. So what are you crying about? What's the deal? And they were all just like, we should probably wrap up now. But the audience, who didn't know who I was, was like, yeah, answer the question.
But they were answering the question because they wanted to see you get ragdolled. They were thinking they would answer no, you're right, we should stop crying. And then you're going, well, hold on a second. This is obviously a logical inconsistency. So I don't know, did they kick you out?
So sort of. So once it got around in their little page that I was there, these clinic escorts that I think were women, maybe.
Okay.
They came in.
Because men can get abortions too. I want to ask you about that next, how the culture has changed, but yes.
Sure. So these people came and sought me out at the conference, and they start getting in my face, and they're like, we know who you are. You're not welcome here, blah, blah, blah. And so honestly, I'm not a small gal or anything, but these people were 3 times my size.
Yeah,
and
men.
so I was basically. So I was like, I should probably leave. So it was at the end of the day anyway. So we'd made it like through the whole day. But once they started, but what was interesting was that once it started going around on their app that I was there, a lot of people that were there were like, why is it a problem that she's here? So what? She's pro-life. Like, she's a woman. She probably cares about some of these other issues.
Right.
Why are y'all giving her a hard time? So it was really sort of like a clash, even among the people who were there.
Well, I'm glad that you made it through most of the day. That being said, I hope they didn't boot you too close to the end of the day, because when the sun goes down in Detroit, you die. Let me ask you. Well, this is something that's interesting to me. We've had. I think the last time you were on the show, a couple of years ago. And certainly when I started doing this show, hosting this program, before it was daily, back when I was in Michigan and it was in my den, safe, legal, and rare was still somewhat the mantra. I remember that's how they kind of tried to refute the idea of Gosnell. Like, this is an extreme example. We need Planned Parenthood so there is no Gosnell situation. Mm-hmm. We need it so that abortion is not that common, that it is clean, that it is sanitary, that we ensure the safety of our patients. And now we've gone from safe, legal, and rare to shouting your abortion. Would you say that the culture in Planned Parenthood today, as you see it, obviously as an outsider, is different than when you were there, or was it just hidden more effectively?
Yeah, it's different. I mean, we performed abortions, we had abortion quotas, all of that, right? But that was sort of like for management to know. Mm-hmm. We had abortion brochures, but they were kept behind the counter. So they weren't just like out in public view. It was still more about, well, we are all about women's health care. We're all about birth control. We're about these things. And occasionally we do abortion, which management knew it was way more than occasionally, but that was sort of the public front that you put out for people. Now it's so just brazen, like in your face. Everything is about vaginas and abortion. And I went to the Women's March 2 years ago, and I have this sign that says, feminists reject.
Oh, hold on a second. I think our evil overlords at the internet were silencing you a little bit. We didn't get that. Your signal went out. Can you just repeat what your sign said?
Okay. So my sign says, true feminists reject abortion. And I said, that went over like a fart in church. Okay. So.
Which, by the way, I've also done. So I've been offending people on all fronts.
Awesome.
Also, we thought a man was having a heart attack one time at church. Hold that thought. Swear to you, this is a true story. I've never prayed so hard in my life. Honestly, I was in church, and we thought a man was having a heart attack or a seizure, and he was foaming at the mouth, and he fell over, and like, you ever see like real serious someone's foaming at the mouth? And I was sitting there, I was like, please God, please don't let this man die. I kind of knew him. He was a nice guy. He choked on a Mentos. Swear to God. That's all. He was just looking for some minty freshness.
That was the foam.
Yeah,
that was the foam.
That's what it was. It was just white. Which then the pastor
had really fresh breath.
Right. So, and the pastor went from being really concerned to very upset because he had clearly fallen asleep during the service and choked on a Mentos. But okay, sorry. Continue with what you were saying.
Okay, so I'm at the Women's March. And I was like, I was looking around and I was like, I'm actually embarrassed to say that I had been at one point in time a part of this movement. They're like, we're more than our sexual parts. Yet every single sign had the word pussy on it. Okay. Right. Like, my favorite sign was, I don't really know if I should say this. My favorite sign that I saw there was like a woman's legs open. Okay, I have a picture of it. And Trump's head was her vagina. And then her pubic hair was Trump's hair. Okay? And it's like, Trump, stay out of my pussy. And I'm like, girl, maybe girl. Yeah. He is not trying to be there. Okay? So.
And they were even embarrassed because I don't know if you remember, I interviewed Wendy Davis at the Women's March as Stephanie. Even when my wig and hat blew off, apparently, the lid hadn't been blown off the gag. She still continued the interview. But during that day, if you watch the video, there were a bunch of topless women out there, and they actually had a paper machine. There's no other way to say this. A giant pissing paper mache vagina. That's what they had. I don't know why urinating. I don't even understand what that has to do with reproductive health. But that's what they had. This girl was topless. And because she thought I was transgender, I had to stop because I knew my wife would see the segment. She grabbed my hands at one point and tried to put them on her breast. Like, look! And I was like, no, I'll take your word for it. But later that night, she was our server at the pizza. She was our server at the pizza parlor, and she had no idea that I was Stephanie. And so I asked her, "So what did you do today?" "Oh, nothing. I kind of checked out the Women's March." I said, "Oh, anything happened there?" No. She didn't say I was out there showing my tits to the entire city of Austin from the Capitol steps and tried to give a tranny the opportunity to grasp them, almost sexually harassed a transgender with my bare breasts. She was embarrassed by it. I would imagine that also translates to workers at Planned Parenthood when they're trying to teach their kids. It's like, Mom, is this not, hold on a second, Mom, is this not you with your bare tits and a tranny at the Women's March and a paper mache vagina? Yeah, listen, I don't know if you have the authority to ground me. So the media acts as though it's not embarrassing, but I do sense there's a bit of a disconnect from some rational pro-abortion activists who might be embarrassed by the shout your abortion thing.
I would hope so. I mean, it was really vile, and I'm no prude, okay, but it was like really vile, and I just thought, oh my gosh, like this is not. I was never part of that movement. I would have never carried a sign that said that, but it's just who they've become. And they're really proud. It's like, we're not, they don't know who they are. Right. So they're like, well, we're more than just our sexual organs yet. Let's talk about my pussy all day. And then,
which by the way, men are happy to oblige. We're good.
Yeah. And then by the way, you don't have to have a pussy to be a woman.
Nope.
It's like, what? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. They don't know who they are. They don't know what they support.
How does that compare with the Right to Life March? I believe you spoke there this year, and it was a pretty big one. Not a peep, of course, from the media. How would you contrast the two?
Strangely enough, no pussy signs.
Really?
At the March for Life. Yeah, I can believe it. It's just different. The Women's March is fueled by anger and hate. And really, it's not even a women's march. It's an anti-Trump march. I mean, let's just be honest. That's what it's about.
That's a good point, yeah.
Yeah, and like the pro-life, the March for Life is like, it's just really like joyful, and there's so many young people there. And, occasionally some Native American protesters that nobody knew was there. Right. And but like even the protesters that are there.
Because abortion was a very common practice among the Apaches.
Sure. So, even the protesters that are there, like the poor women that show up to be there to protest, like they're treated with kindness, really, by the pro-lifers. When I went to the Women's March, I was pregnant with my twins. I was like big, visibly pregnant with my twins, and I'm holding my sign, and these three people come and like barrel me and like knock me over and like assault me in the street because I'm pro-life. And so it's just a very different vibe. It's a very different tone. Right. And people are just generally more joyful.
Right. Yeah, I can imagine. I did want to go to the Women's March this year. Speaking of vulgar displays, I like to use the system to subvert the system. A lot of people go, why are you telling dick jokes? Right? Well, the reason is because I know that these people use vulgarity, and we're certainly nowhere near. This is a PG-13 show. But I understand that's a language they speak. And so you use it to subvert it and effectively, hopefully, transmit a message. I wanted to go. We didn't have the time, and I was not in the best of health. I wanted to go to the march this year and have a big paper mache vagina like they have. I wanted to have a big display, and I wanted to be dressed as a baby and crown and come out, but then have a doctor chase me with a pair of scissors as a pro-life display. But I didn't have the time to do it, and I think it would have been lost on a lot of people. Speaking of kindness and compassion, I think if people have read your book and people have looked into your work, that it speaks for itself. It's a catalog that speaks for itself. I think something that's missed by a lot of people, and this is your latest outreach, abortionworker.com. A lot of people who work in the abortion industry who want to get out, they also have stories. They also have conflictions that are really hard for them to discuss. What's been your experience with that, and what are you doing with abortionworker.com?
Yeah. So, and then there were none in our ministry. We have almost 500 workers who have left now.
And this means leaving like Planned Parenthood and places that provide abortions.
Like leaving abortion clinics. Yeah. I think what we didn't really expect was just, such a large percentage of them suffer from PTSD. Mm-hmm. And not like how everybody says they suffer from PTSD, but like legit diagnosable PTSD.
Because they see the ultrasounds.
They see the ultrasounds. And not only that, but like we've had a lot of workers come to us from late term abortion clinics. Mm-hmm. And they're telling us like about babies that are born alive, that are suffocated to death. They're left to die crying on their own, like in a metal pan in the utility closet. Like there's just a lot of, there was one of our workers that came to us who there was a baby born alive at 23 weeks and they would not allow her. They were physically blocking her from leaving the procedure room to go call 911 to save this baby. Wow. And she was doing CPR on the baby for like 30 minutes before they pulled her off of the baby. Yeah. And so there's just a lot of like trauma. Piecing together baby parts during the day, that's not normal. Like nothing that you do in the abortion clinic is normal. And so, I think we didn't expect like so much trauma. And so that's why we did have to hire licensed professional therapists to come on staff with us, because almost all the clients that come through our ministry, like they need professional counseling.
Well, that was going to be my follow-up question, because I know a lot of people will say, well, hold on a second. You're acting like this is, not without my daughter, and you're trying to pull them from some country, like they're a refugee. They are working at these clinics of their own volition. Why do they need you? What's the average person who comes to you for help? Why? What are they seeking when they say, hey, I need you to help me get out of this, as opposed to just walking in and giving 2 weeks notice?
So the abortion industry tells them that if they ever leave, they'll give them a bad reference. And we've seen that over and over again. They try to like blackball them from the medical community. If anybody calls, we've been told by potential employers of these workers, when I called, they gave me a terrible reference, even though they had been like a stellar employee. Look at what Planned Parenthood did to me. I had just been awarded their Employee of the Year, for God's sake. And when I left, they were like, she was a terrible employee anyway. Really? That's why you gave me the Employee of the Year? Okay. So it's, we're talking about an industry that is not known for its honesty. So they're not honest. They blackball these workers. A lot of the workers that come to us are single parents. They did not know that they were going to be doing that they were going to be participating in abortion procedures, because I would say 90% of the people that come through, and then there were none, were told, oh, you're not going to have anything to do with abortion. You're just going to be answering phones. You're just going to be taking the money. You're just going to be doing labs. You're just going to be running vitals. That was all they were told they were going to do. But what they do is they slowly work you back. Once you're comfortable with abortion, you get a little more comfortable, then they start moving you back into the rooms. And then like you're sort of stuck because you're making a lot of money. You have good insurance. You're a single mom. You're working 50, 60 hours a week. When do you have time to go get another job? You don't. So they feel very trapped. Mm-hmm. So that's where we can come in and help.
Now, what would be their motivation for taking someone who signed up to be a desk worker and gradually moving them back into the room? Why wouldn't they just say, okay, you just stay a desk worker?
Well, the turnover rate is so high within the abortion industry. The turnover rate is something like 30%. I think the national average is like 18 or 19%. So the turnover rate in the abortion industry is super high. So they eventually want everybody in the office to be cross-trained. Like I could do everything in my clinic except actually perform the abortion. But I could do ultrasounds, I could draw every lab, I could run every test, I could do counseling, I could do billing, I could do everything. They want to train everybody everywhere because somebody is always quitting.
So the initial turnover rate is really high, and that's kind of the reason for your outreach, your ministry, because once people are in, they've made it past that turnover rate, they tend to get in pretty deep, and it's hard for them to get out.
Hard to get out.
Gosh, that is just harrowing to imagine. How many of these women, because you said they might get bad referrals, they might not get a good reference. Is that for the medical community at large, or if they want to go just to another abortion clinic?
No, it's the medical community at large.
Okay.
We had a pro-life doctor who was willing to hire one of the medical assistants who had left, and he said, "I have never heard such a scathing reference from." And he said, and I know, I mean, they just, and that's illegal. Actually, what they were doing, talking about her personally, that's illegal. Like, the only thing you're supposed to give is like the day they started, the day they left, how much they made, and if they're rehirable. But this manager was going on and on about how terrible she was and nobody should hire her, and he would be a fool to hire this woman and all this kind of stuff. She's turned out to be an excellent employee for this doctor, but they will do anything to keep these workers sort of in bondage and beholden to the abortion industries. What happens is they feel like, well, if they can't get a job outside of the abortion clinic, they'll be forced to come back. And that's really what they want.
And it's like going back to a pimp who slapped you around in the first place.
Exactly.
I would love to know what that phone, like, can you, if you can imagine, she tried to save a baby in a pan. Could you believe it? I wouldn't let her within a mile of any medical facility. Let me ask you this.
She actually wanted us to sterilize the instrument.
Can you believe it? I said toss it in a dishwasher with some Dawn on fast cycle and call it a day. She wanted us to do the pots and pans. That's 32 minutes. What am I, retired? Let me ask you this. How many of these women who come to you, obviously, we're kind of talking about just the professional existence, where they want to move on to other work and they feel trapped. How many of them would you say go from being pro-abortion to pro-life? Or are a lot of them still pro-abortion to an extent, and they just are sort of disenchanted with the industry?
No, I mean, I would say almost all of them. Once they actually go through our program and everything, all of them will come away saying, like, no, I'm against abortion. Some of them, they're like, I'm still having a hard time, like, with exception, like rape and incest. Okay. But none of them would say, like, abortion is okay, it's acceptable, it should be legal.
Right.
They see the damage that was done to women inside of these clinics, and they want to walk away from it. And a lot of them then start speaking out. And we have some women, like we have 2 people who worked for Kermit Gosnell's clinic, who actually went to prison for 3 years for murder charges. When they got out, they contacted us and they went through our healing program. So there are some that they worked in the industry a long time ago, but they just never found healing or told anybody about it. So then they come through our program later.
So really, none of them are coming through shouting their abortion like the Ricola guy. They're pretty much all on the other side of the fence. Okay, we do have to get going pretty soon, so I do want to talk about, you just mentioned the film project. I know it's unplannedfilm.com is the website. Can you, I don't want to blow the lid off anything, can you tell the audience a little bit about that and where they can look for it?
Yeah, so it's coming out March 29th, and it's going to be a big, wide release. So it's not going to be like, I have to drive 4.5 hours to go see this movie. It'll be everywhere. And it's really good. Like, it's not a cheesy Christian film. There's like some cussing in it, it's like real. Cause I was like, I told the directors, like, listen to me. It's like, you cannot have a film about abortion workers where people are like, gee whiz, did you see that?
Yes.
That's not reality. Okay. Like,
Jiminy Jillikers, methinks I'm going to need to get some forceps this way.
Exactly.
Yeah.
You can't do that. So it's very real.
Grab Kirk Cameron over there in the surgical mask.
Kirk Cameron is not in it.
Nothing wrong with that. I'm just saying he probably wouldn't cuss. He wouldn't take part in a film that might be so raw. I like Mr. Cameron.
No. It's very raw, and so yeah, like, Ali Stuckey?
Yes. Yeah, I know of course she's here to see her.
So she went and screened it last night, and she texted me and last night, and she's like, Abby, she's like, the reason I love this film is because a lot of times in Christian films, like, the fall is sort of like, it wasn't that bad, right? So then like the redemption isn't really that big of a deal. She was like, but the fall in your movie is so bad. Like I was so bad that she's like, it makes the redemption even better because you see like truly how bad things were.
Sure.
And I think that's definitely a true assessment.
You know what? That's what the Bible is. The truth is, if the Bible were written today, there would absolutely be cussing in there because it's a documentation of what. So if you read the Bible, like when people say, I cannot believe it, what you just said was pornographic. Have you read Songs of Solomon? Fabio might as well be on the cover of that.
So dirty.
It's unbelievable. Jesus called people fools. That was hugely offensive back then. Trigger warning, fools was about as bad as you can possibly get. And I think that's important. We try to be pretty transparent on this show. I know I've talked about my shortcomings because, I don't want to rag on any specific film, but the movie Fireproof, okay? I say this because I watched it, and you're talking about the fall. It was about a marriage that had some problems. Well, the problems were the guy watched porn every now and then, not a good thing, and he would like get mad at his wife. I'm like, I have holes in my wall from when I threw a kiwi in rage. By the way, I didn't even know a kiwi could break drywall, so I think it would help people who are going through real problems if you actually recognize the fall. Otherwise, there can't be any redemption, and that's not glorifying the sin. That's not glorifying the fall. It's acknowledging that we need help. Otherwise, it's moot.
Well, and then you have all these people who are like, oh gosh, well, I'm way worse than what was portrayed in that film. So is there even hope for me? Let me tell you something. You can't get much worse than how I'm portrayed in this film. So it really is a movie for everybody. It's going to make everybody feel really good about themselves. Like if I'm ever having like a fat day, I watch My 600-Pound Life, right? Because it makes me feel much better about myself. That's essentially like what this movie is. You're like, man, I really screwed up today. Just go watch Unplanned. You'll feel way better about yourself.
That's exactly what I did when I ruptured my disc in my back and I found out that I was going to be like half an inch shorter. I watched Little People, Big World. Yeah.
Perfect.
And it just provided a little bit of context. Just took the edge off. That and some Percocet. All right. It is at Abby Johnson, abbyjohnson.org. And then there were none as the ministry. I think that's abortionworker.com. The movie is unplannedfilm.com. It's going to be a wide release, so you don't have to go to a men's group or a women's Bible study. What's the date? March what?
March 29th.
March 29th. I am definitely going to go and see that film. I'm looking forward to it because I know I've been following, I've been following your work here for a while, and I encourage everybody else to. Hey, Abby, thank you so much for being here, and keep up the good work. We appreciate it. Hey there, here I am drinking from my mug in a button-down. How often do you see this? Never. So do me a favor and yourself, click one of these videos playing one of these boxes here, or subscribe, hit the notification bell also, because subscriptions don't really mean a whole lot. If you really want to support the show, join my club. If you don't, then there's no helping you.